Where else would you rather be than right here, right now, tuning in to Bill's Central Radio?
Buffalo Bills 2013, fresh new faces, each Emmanuel on scene, CJ in front of back, a strong round attack, Stevie Johnson at receiver, makes us all believers, Mario Marcel, our D-line personnel, Bird and Gilmore, better shut the door, but they need the 12th man, and that's every single fan, so this is a network to listen to the expert, it's Bills Mafia, Chris Brown and Dale Reid, week in, week out, satisfaction guaranteed, every time out a new guest on the show, putting on for the fans of Buffalo. No subscription. This is for free. It's Bills Central Radio on PFC.
Well, we're live here on Monday afternoon. This is your host, Chris Brown. I'm on the line with the co-host of the show as well, Del Reid. How are you doing today, Del?
That intro. That's the first I heard it. That's a shout out to Greg Torlone at GTorlone, GTORLONE on Twitter. Great job, bro. That was fantastic. I'm sitting here smiling. That's funny. That's cool, man.
Yeah,
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
It got me laughing. I like it. I definitely have to give a shout out to Greg for it. We appreciate it. It's definitely new to the show. We appreciate him doing that for us. Last week we missed it a little bit. How was your vacation?
It was good. I'm very proud. My daughter won a national video contest, so that I'm really proud of her. I never did anything like that when I was a kid, so she's already way ahead of me. So good on her. I'm happy for her.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, we got a great show lined up for our listeners this week. We have Alonso Shavers. He's the founder and president of Infinity Sports Concepts. We also have the Dolphins Central host, Thomas Galacia, is going to join us later on today. But first up, we have our first guest, Alonso. Thank you for taking the time and joining us today on BillsCentralRadio.
Hey, I appreciate the invitation, and I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Well, let's start off and have you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you worked your path into becoming an NFL agent.
Well, it's pretty simple. I'm as when we were coming through the college ranks, and you go through school, you always hear different parents and maybe teachers or professors or loved ones of some sort always ask that question. Hey, if football doesn't work out, what are you going to do? And so many of us go through school, major in things that allow us to get a degree as opposed to setting us up for whatever career we want to move into. So I was blessed to be able to have a little more focus coming in from the service and having my time to think about what it was I wanted to do, and walked on at Ohio State. And when that transition from playing moved into get a job, this was the job that I was ready for. So, it was a very easy transition for me. A lot of people don't have that type of transition opportunity. But, I take my hat off to the ones that do it, differently than I did, but that was my walk.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm sure a lot of athletes that are listening kind of want to stay within the athletics realms, and you're one who's done it. So it goes to show that it can be done. Now,
it can be done.
Yes, it can. Now, to get on to the Buffalo Bills talk a little bit, we had our safety was tagged earlier this past year by the organization, Jarvis Bird. We want to know what's your opinion of it. Did they make the right choice in first off franchising him as opposed to trying to hammer out a deal, right before the tag had to be in place?
Well, I'm by no stretch of imagination am I ever pro-organization. Being in the line of work that I'm in, I'm always looking out for the interests of the players and my clients. But with that also being said, you do have to be able to understand the dynamics that the team is trying to put together in structuring your deal and where they go, from there. So I'm not real specific with the Buffalo's Bills backdrop and what their economic situation is. But, just kind of going through the historic way that we went through it and things kind of being pretty similar, I do think, it was a good situation for him to get franchised. You don't want to lose a talent like that. I mean, he's been balling over the last couple of years, man. The kid's really, really done well. And if they could not come to the worth that he has played himself into and what the market will bear for him, then you don't want to insult him with, a long-term deal that is not what he's expecting within the framework of what's out there. So, if the only thing you have left to do is franchise him to try to put those things in order, then, it can't be bad. Now, from his perspective, it's probably the worst thing could ever happen to him because, every game that they walk out there, they assume the responsibility of injury and things of this nature. And you never know how you're going to come back from an injury. Brent Grimes down in, came from Atlanta, who's in Miami now. He seems to be doing well coming off of his Achilles tear. But just depending on what the injury is and how extensive, you never know if you're going to get yourself back into that position to get the money that you are worth at that point. So you want to get things, as they say, out the way as opposed to waiting. So.
All right, Alonso, this is Reid with BillsMafia.com. Again, thanks for coming on with us. I appreciate it.
Hey, no worries.
So I'm going to prepare you, all right? We're going to ask you a lot of bird questions. We're going to hit you probably. We're going to hit you with a bunch of different angles on this because you're one of those guys. I appreciate it because you're one of those guys that's going to maybe understand or can maybe bring a little bit more to the answers that we ask people on here just because of, your nature of work and everything. So I just want to get that apology out of the way.
No worries, man. I would expect nothing else from the Buffalo Bills extension of their media. No worries. No worries.
All right. Great. All right, well, here we go then because we're about to hit you. So, all right, first and foremost, maybe it's a dumb question based on your last answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. You think he should be paid based on those statistics as a top safety? Where would you fit him in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Off the top of your head, where do you think he deserves to be paid?
Here's what I'm going to say, okay? And this kind of puts things in perspective because I'm going to let you do the math. Numbers tell the story. You build your case on anything but his numbers, he could win or lose. You build your case on his numbers, that question almost answers itself. Where does his numbers put him? Well, his numbers put him in that top 3 category, period. There's nothing else to talk about. If we take this conversation outside of those numbers, then we're opening this up for way too much speculation on things that don't matter. At the end of the day, wins and losses matter. What helped get wins and losses? Turnovers. Who's helping you get turnovers? Mr. Bird.
So now, you in your experience, have you seemed to see that players tend to want to go to the numbers and teams kind of want to get outside the numbers and move the conversation into like a different space?
It depends on the player, and it really depends on the numbers. If the numbers do not allow you to have anything other than, hey, how can we get this done, then of course they're not going to want to camp out on those numbers. But that's where I would tell you to camp out because it takes, as an agent, they all want to say that of course you say that, that's your guy. Well, I don't have to sugarcoat those numbers. Those numbers are your numbers and my numbers because those same numbers help you get to the goal that you had. And those same numbers I expect to help me get to the goal that I have. So, that's kind of where I like to put it. And if you base it off of his numbers, then he's one of the best in the league, period.
Sure. All right. That makes perfect sense. All right. So now you touched on this a little bit a few moments ago, but this is more of like a standard procedure, or maybe it's more of your opinion. I think this might be something that kind of tends to be maybe a hard and fast rule among players, or just a hard and fast like thought process. But now that the deadline's gone, okay, the Bills can't work out a long-term deal at this point now with Jairus Byrd. They don't have that option. Whoever you want to blame, that option was wasted. It's gone. They have to sign a one-year deal. That's the only thing the CBA is going to allow. Now, do you think that from Byrd's standpoint, should he just sign the tag, like the blanket standard tag, typical language, or should he try to work out a custom one-year deal, something that maybe doesn't allow him to be franchised next year, or what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think you pretty much already know what my opinion is. I'm sure you've done your homework on me, but I say this. Listen, I have no problems playing a game once. Everyone's educated. I'm not into repetitive game playing. So, me personally, I absolutely agree and say that go sign the tender. It is what it is. Now, when you sign that depends on really what his off-season workout program consists of. If he's a go-getter, man, sign the tender at its last most possible moment. We don't want to risk any injuries. If you have questionable work ethic, which I cannot speak to with this young man, if you have any type of questionable work ethic and you know that you need to be in an environment that's going to push you, then take your ass to camp. Sign the tender and keep it moving. It really depends on him, as opposed to depend on the outside opinions that are going to be thrown on him. But if he's a workout warrior, if he's a guy that gets after it, you've always seen him, he's in, optimal condition and shape, go in at his last possible moment, and push for them to not put you in this situation again.
Yeah. Okay, now to that point, Bills are in, well, it's not really unique for them. It's about a 3-year cycle lately. But, Bills are in a somewhat unique position here where they've got a new coaching staff in place. The defense is brand new with Mike Pettin. And you mentioned before the need for numbers, although maybe the book's already written on Jairus. But do you think that he harms himself by not having the opportunity to have the defense installed with him in place? Do you think that can hurt his numbers going into the year and maybe hamstring him a little bit?
Well, it depends on his football IQ. No more, no less. I mean, if he has a decent football IQ and he can pick up the scheme, or he's in talks with the individuals that are keeping that in line. Listen, to put this in perspective for you. Whether you read the newspaper and the sports page last night or whether you just came in and picked it up this morning, at some level, once you bring in the information into you and process it, you can spit it back out with some level of accuracy, with your opinion on it, and you didn't have to spend a week studying it, correct?
Yep.
Then he's a pro at his job too. I would think that he could come in and pick up something within a time frame that's respectable. If you are planning appropriately and you plan on not going in until a latter point of the camp or whatever the case may be, then I not only would expect that that's within your capabilities, I would demand that would happen. Or he's going to put himself in a situation where he's going to question his decision making, and it's not going to help him get another contract. Now I know some of the people in the Bills front office, the Doug Whaley's and the guys of this nature. So he by no stretch of imagination is he not a football guy. Even in his days when he was in Pittsburgh, the guy knows football. So when you're dealing with somebody who knows football, and I've never really been known, our interaction, I've never known him to kind of throw curveballs. He's pretty straightforward. When you're dealing with somebody that plays, that knows the game of football and is pretty straightforward, then you just got to do what's in your best interest. They're going to do what's in their best interest, and hopefully you meet somewhere in the middle.
All right, now this is going to be my last question, and Chris will have a couple more for you. And again, I appreciate you humoring us with all this stuff. How much leverage does he have right now at this moment?
Now, who did the Bills draft? Did they draft any safeties?
2.
They drafted 2 safeties. Where were they?
They drafted Duke Williams in the 4th and Jonathan Meeks in the 5th.
He's got plenty of leverage. They didn't draft to replace him, so they plan on him being there. With that being the case, now you're not going to strong arm me into making the decision you want me to make. In my opinion, I don't think that's going to happen. But he's got to do what's in his best interest at this point. That doesn't put him in to any type of harm's way as far as his career is concerned. And I don't think coming to the first day of camp is, that big of a deal, personally.
Okay. Now, you alluded to before a little bit about signing the tag, and there's one scenario that we kind of didn't touch on yet. A lot of speculation going around on social media on what the next step is. Half the fans are, wanted him to sign his franchise tag and get to camp, and others are fed up with it and just want him to sign and be traded. Now, how possible is it for the Bills to, so to speak, have Bird sign and trade as they did Peters years ago, where the Bills secondary kind of needs Bird's leadership? But do you see a sign and trade in the cards possible?
Man, I gotta love these hypotheticals. No, I see him signing it and going to be a Buffalo Bill for as long as he signed that tender for. Whether it be franchise tag, the 1 year, or in a promise to do something different. If they can give him an opportunity not to tag him, then that puts a little more leverage in his plate for them to be serious and to really make sure they get something done, because they don't have the leeway of something to fall back on. That's what they had this year with the tag. They knew they could fall back on the tag. If it doesn't get done, we still got him. Well, that's the nature of the beast. You agree to it, they play the game. Got to know the rules. So now, with that being said, when you move into, the fan base, they get stirred up, and, that's why they call them fans. I believe that's short for fanatics. So, you have to understand that that's the thought process that's coming through their head, being a fanatic, not caring about anything outside of what they're focused on. So he has a little bit more to worry about. Sign and trade, not necessarily one of them. I don't think that's in the Bills' best interest. And if they've held him to this point, haven't given him a deal, they clearly are moving within the confounds that's in their best interest. Signing and trading him wouldn't be part of that. Okay.
Sure. Well, it's just always nice to hear a perspective where we kind of cover all realms of possibilities. As fans like to speculate all the time, so it's good to hear.
Oh, this is that time, man. This is that time of the season. Have a ball, because when they start putting that grass on, when they start putting them cleats in the grass, all the speculation is over and done with. Then they start loving or hating. So there's different phases to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. They gotta find one way or another to have football talk. So that's one way to do it.
Yeah. So this is the time, man. So if you're gonna do it, this will be the time.
Absolutely. Now the last question that we have for you, we'll appreciate all the bird talk that you did for us. Now on a personal level, give us your most interesting story that you have from your time as being an NFL agent up to this point, or even possibly during your collegiate career.
Most interesting story, man. You know what, man? For me to give you a specific story would be probably more challenging. I just have, coming from the playing side of it and dealing with the guys that I played with, every opportunity that I had a chance to tie my cleats up was interesting and favorable. I was a walk-on. So everything that I came into was more than I really signed up for, and everything was a different experience. I wasn't a highly recruited kid out of high school. I went to the service, so everything I did was non-traditional. So as I walked through the playing days at Ohio State, man, I had an absolute ball. I met a lot of different people, and we had a lot of different stories as you go through them, more or less memories more than they are stories. But I played with some characters, the Mike Wileys, the Terry Glenn, Dan Wilkinson, Joey Galloway. Some of the guys are broadcasters now, Eddie George. Oh, I've got plenty in the memoirs, but to pull one out at this moment, I wouldn't even do you justice, man. I couldn't even possibly come across one, man. And the ones that you would really enjoy, I'm sure my clients don't want me telling. So yeah. It kind of works both ways. The one I would want to tell you, no one wants me to tell you that story. So, it's just one of those things to where, I'm going to have to take some of these things to the grave with me, although I do like educating and sharing what enthuses me and, meeting new and different people, man. Just like you guys, man. I'm sure if we spent a day on the golf course, we would have plenty to talk about, but I wouldn't talk about it with anybody else but you.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate the time. Now, where can our listeners find you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm at Infinite Sports on Twitter, Instagram at Infinite Sports. Keep it pretty consistent. So by all means, you can get me on there anytime. And we'll take it from there. I really appreciate the invitation and you listening to what I had to say.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you once again, Alonso, for taking the time and spreading your wealth of knowledge from an NFL agent standpoint on the recent Bird situation and what could play out for the Bills. We greatly appreciate your time.
Well, here's what I didn't ask you. What do you want to happen? That's what I want to know. What would you like to see done? That would be the most interesting thing in my world, is to know how the radio personalities in that very city, how you treating Mr. Bird, man?
We personally, from my standpoint, I would have loved to seen a long-term deal worked out before the deadline. But I want him at camp. I want him to get to know the defense, and I want him to ball out, so to speak, and get his money due next year. And hopefully the Bills offer him the contract that he's due. From my standpoint, what do you think, Del?
Yeah, I would love for him to have signed. Now, I'm already speaking like woulda, coulda, shoulda, but I wish they could have signed a long-term deal. It's difficult. You pay you pay an outsider $100 million, make him the richest defensive player in league history last year in Mario Williams, and then you've got somebody who you brought in yourself, who's grown up, through your ranks, and not paying him his worth it can be a little frustrating to watch.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that situation, very familiar. But hey, a warrior is never appreciated in his hometown. Last time I checked, so sometimes you just have to do what you got to do, man. All right, man, gentlemen, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
We're back here on Bills Central Radio. We just finished talking with Alonso Shaver. Great guest, had a great analogy of the Jairus Bird situation. And now we are on to our second guest of the show. He is the host of Dolphins Central Radio here on Pro Football Central Radio Network. We have Thomas Galacia on the line. How you doing, Thomas?
No, doing very well. How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic. Looks like you guys are in your second day of training camp. We had our rookies reporting in today, so you're a step ahead of the game a little bit down in the Florida Keys area.
Yeah, well, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Dolphins do play the first preseason game of the year in the Hall of Fame game, which is a good 5 or 6 days before anyone else plays a preseason game. So, and even then, training camp so far, the one interesting thing was that yesterday, the first day of training camp, Ryan Tannehill and Mike Wallace seemed to have some problems connecting, which led to some panic. But today, after all the camp sessions were done, the two of them on their own went to practice on their own, and we're definitely connecting. So yeah, it's been an interesting 2 days. And then of course there's Deion Jordan, who is still on the injured list. He could come off within the next week, but that's opened the door for Olivier Vernon to to come in and possibly steal what should be Jordan's spot on the opposite side of Cameron Wake on the pass rush.
Nice. All right, well, we got a couple questions for you. We'll add a little bit of Bills intel in with it. Now, we'll start off with the training camp starting for the Bills in this upcoming Sunday, and with the Dolphins already started. Taking a look at the running back situation, the Bills are pretty set in the running back situation. Arguably have the best running back tandem in the AFC East, probably top 5 in the NFL with C.J. Spiller and Freddie Jackson. What's the Dolphins running back situation looking like now that Reggie Bush is up in the Motor City up in Detroit?
Well, Lamar Miller is the starting running back. They said earlier this year that might be a competition between Miller and Thomas, and then they drafted Mike Gillislee out of the University of Florida in the 5th round, and Gillislee had a good rookie camp. But it's Lamar Miller. You hear what everyone is saying. You hear what Tannehill and Philbin have said about Miller and how he's improved on his pass protection, which should allow him to stay on the field longer. And he is the better runner than both Thomas and Gillislee. He has more of a home run potential than both of those running backs. And he's been training all off season with Pete Bomarito and with Frank Gore, which is a pretty good sign for him. So he's the number one running back, and then backing him up is Daniel Thomas, who, if he can, as long as he can stay healthy, he should be okay as a short yardage back. But, staying healthy for Daniel Thomas has always been a problem. And then Mike Gillislee, as the possible third string running back, he's looked good. He looked good at the University of Florida, and he had a really good Senior Bowl. He's looked good in rookie minicamp, but I don't see him to get as many carries this season as I thought even a month ago, because Daniel Thomas is so far looking healthy, and Lamar Miller's just looking great thus far.
Okay. Now, let's take a little look at the quarterback situation up here in Buffalo. As you know, we drafted rookie E.J. Manuel, and he's in competition with Kevin Cobb with the training camp coming approaching. Now, you just had a similar situation, so to speak, with Ryan Tannehill and Matt Moore down in Miami. Do you expect Tannehill to continue his trend of progressing this year in the league, and thinking he can improve on last year?
No, most definitely. He has better weapons around him than he did last year. Obviously, we already talked about Mike Wallace. That's a huge upgrade as your number one receiver from Brian Hartline, who's now his number 2 receiver, and that's an upgrade from Devon Best. The only question is, did they upgrade at number 3 receiver from Devon Best to Brandon Gibson? Gibson has had some problems himself beating out Armand Binns for the number 3 receiver, but there's still plenty of training camp left to go. Still plenty that can happen. And then the 5th receiver slot, that looks like that's going to be a battle, and it looks like it will be important too. We actually had last week Jasper Collins as our guest, and everything I've seen on Collins has been great, and he himself is a great guy. And he could be a player competing for that 5th wide receiver spot, and could wind up even being important to the Dolphins. But Tannehill, he will improve. The question is, how much will he improve, and can he score more touchdowns than turnovers? Last year, I really didn't look at that as being such a bad thing, because he only scored 12 touchdowns. And part of that had to do with the fact that once they got into the red zone, they did get very conservative. And also, his receivers drop a lot of passes. I think that's going to change this year, and I think he's going to get at least 20 touchdowns. So even if he throws the same amount of interceptions, it will still be more touchdowns than interceptions.
Hey, Thomas, this is Del Reid, BillsMafia.com. It's great to talk to you again. I had, for the listeners that don't know, I had the great opportunity to hang out on Dolphins Central a few weeks back and basically do what Thomas is doing right now, just give a rundown on the state of the team and answer some of the host questions. So thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it.
No problem.
My question is kind of touching on what you just spoke about. in terms of the receivers, Mike Wallace, he definitely arrived with quite a bit of fanfare and dollars waiting for him at South Beach. What's the impact you think he's going to have, not only on the team, but the division on the whole?
Well, I think he gives the Dolphins the best wide receiving core in the AFC East. Best is in, at least they're the most proven, although they're not proven as a whole, but they are the most proven for now in the entire division. And what he's going to do is he's going to make it so that you cannot just load 7, 8, 9 men in the box against the Dolphins like you've been able to the last couple of years. Instead, you have to take him into account. And also, he should free up Hartline, and that's very important because we saw what Brian Hartline was able to do last season when he was a number one receiver, even though he's not really a number one type receiver. And he was getting the double teams, and he was and everything like that. This year, he's not going to be getting that because more teams are going to be paying attention to Wallace, so that's going to definitely free him up. And then also what he'll do for Brandon Gibson and for Dustin Keller. And the running game, what Mike Wallace really does is he doesn't just add the long ball threat, but by adding the long ball threat, he frees up everybody else on offense, and he allows the offense to play at a faster rate. He allows the offense to run smoother. At least that's the idea.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense in terms of not only the skill he brings, but also the attention he's going to bring from the opposing defenses. Now, speaking of defense, on your end of the spectrum here, in regards to your brand new, I think it was 3rd overall, right? Am I right? 3rd overall, Deion Jordan selection in April. Yeah. Do you like what they did in terms of trading up to get him? And do you think he's going to help take some of the pressure off Cameron Wake or maybe even the linebacking core? Like, what do you expect for him to do once he's healed up and he's on the field?
I actually don't expect him to start this year, and I don't have a problem with that. You'd think I would, considering he is a number 3 draft pick, but I know that for now he's going to be a specialist. But considering what he specializes in, if he can provide at least 6 or 7 sacks this season, I will consider it a success. But I don't expect him to start this season. I actually expect Olivier Vernon to have the starting job this season at that position. With Jordan at times, coming on 3rd down or on any other passing down, sometimes he will play in that position. Sometimes he'll even stall Cameron Wake himself. And you might also see Jordan play linebacker. And one of the things I like about him is that he is a Swiss Army knife. When he was at Oregon, he wasn't just a defensive end and he wasn't just a linebacker. He actually played corner from time to time. Now, he's not going to play corner in the NFL. But what I can see him doing when absolutely necessary, not all the time, but, every once in a while, is playing some linebacker and dropping back into coverage. Or even using that as a possibility and then going into rush the passer or vice versa. He's very versatile, and I like having him on the team because of that versatility, but I don't expect to see him starting in 2013.
Okay. Now, talking a little bit about the linebacking position, you had Carlos Dansby go back to his original team in the Arizona Cardinals. With the void that's kind of left there in the linebacking core, and, you drafted Jordan, but you also added Ellerbe from the Super Bowl champion Ravens, gave him a lot of money down there. Do you think he'll come into Miami and perform at the same level that he did with his days dating back into Baltimore as far as Ellerbe goes?
Yeah, he and Philip Wheeler should. What they are is they're a more athletic and younger version of last year's linebacking core of Dansby and Burnett. And Dansby and Burnett, they were very good, but they were getting up there in age, and on top of that, they were going to be a huge hole to fill in free agency next year. So Ireland, with the money that they had this year, decided to take care of that problem now. And that's why he let go of Dansby and Burnett and brought in Ellerbe and Wheeler. And I expect Ellerbe to perform at around the same level, probably better than he did last year in Baltimore, for no other reason than the fact that from the start of the season on, he's going to be the starter.
Okay. Now, we touched on LRB a little bit, as well as Mike Wallace, and the first thing that comes to mind to some fans is the amount of money that the franchise spent on them and spent on free agents throughout the offseason. Some critics have been out there saying that it's ridiculous, and it's so-called as the Dream Team 2.0, and they kind of think that they'll flop just like the Eagles did when they signed all their high-priced free agents a couple of years ago. What's your response to those critics that say that the Dolphins will be the Dream Team 2.0, so to speak?
Well, believe it or not, I do think that, their criticisms are fair and they are warranted. I mean, teams usually that do spend a lot in the offseason do not get that return on investment. And that's the way it's been since free agency came about. One of the first big free agent spending sprees I can remember was actually the Dolphins in I believe it was 1995, right before Shula's last season with the Dolphins, when they went out and they got Trace Armstrong, who was good for the Dolphins for a few years after that. But they also picked up Eric Green and a few other players, and that team flopped in the sense where they were supposed to be 12-4 or 13-3, win the AFC East team. They wound up finishing 9-7, backing its way into the AFC wildcard spot. And like every other season in the 90s, lost at Buffalo because Thurman Thomas ran for 400 yards, or at least it felt like it. That's the first time I can remember a team really spending a lot of free agency, and the first time I could see that same team flopped. So I thought that on my mind. We are a bit traumatized by that, and then there are the Eagles. But and also there's the fact that this is Jeff Ireland that did this, and Jeff Ireland has been a failure. There's no other way around it. But you look at the players that were added. All the players that were added are young guys. The only players over the age of 30 are Clabo, the right tackle, and Brett Grimes, who's actually going to turn 30 this season. And those guys are only signed a 1-year contract. LRB's about to enter his prime. Wallace is in his prime. All these guys are in their 20s. The Dolphins actually managed to get younger and more athletic. So, from that standpoint, they did a really good job. But we know that the criticisms are warranted, and there is a little bit of fear down here because we have been there and we have done that, and we've seen what has happened, and not in a good way.
Okay, so this is going to bring us up to our last question. And again, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Based on everything you've said now, where are they going to end up in the division this year? 1, 2, 3, 4? Tell us about your Dolphins.
Well,
make the case.
Well, I have probably changed my mind between two records. I know they're going to make it to the playoffs this season. I look at the AFC as a whole, and it is just so tightly packed in the middle, and I think New England has fallen into that pack in the middle. The question is, are they going to be 10-6 and go into the wild card, or are they going to be 11-5 and actually win the division? I've been flip-flopping between those two, but I already wrote in print that they were going to be 11-5 and win the division. I'm going to stick to what I wrote already. So I think the Dolphins are going to be 11-5, and they're going to win the AFC East. I think the Patriots are going to finish 10-6, and they'll be the ones getting in as a wild card. And I actually think the Bills will finish 8-8. The Jets, yeah, we don't have to talk about them.
All right. Well, some bold statements from Thomas Galacia, the host of Dolphin Central. Where can the listeners catch you out on Twitter, Thomas?
On Twitter, you can find me at Thomas Galacia, spell it out, Galicia, and also the Dolphin Central Twitter, which is at Dolphin Central. Follow both of those accounts. Plenty of Dolphins news, and I talk about more than the Dolphins on my own personal account.
All right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time and joining us on Bill Central Radio today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Go Fins.
We're back here on Bills Central Radio. Just finished up with our second guest of the day, Tom Galacia, Dolphins Central Radio host. We had two great guests on today. What are your thoughts, Del, on first off, Alonso touching on the bird perspective, and then Thomas making a couple bold statements and thinking that the Dolphins will overthrow the Patriots and win the division at 11-5.
Let's start from the second question. 11-5 win the division. All right, let's go to the first question now.
Okay.
No, I'm just playing. I mean, I'm playing a little bit, but I don't know. I can't make fun. I mean, last year I was convinced the Bills were going to the playoffs after they signed Mario and then followed it up with Mark Anderson, and Dave Wannstedt was going to be the defensive coordinator, and so I'm not going to give him a hard time about that. But having been there, done that, you know, after a free agent's signings, he'll learn. But you know, whatever.
We learn quick enough, and I mean, it's great to have a good perspective on, you know, you think your team's going to do well and overthrow the Patriots in the division, but you know, time will tell and see what happens, you know. Yeah.
We'll see how it pans out. I don't mean to give him crap because he's probably gonna listen to this anyway. So I love you, bro. No worries. Go Bills. But the first question, or the first with Alonso, he was a good sport because all we did was just really hammer him. Already hammered him with bird questions and everything. So he was a good sport about it. He totally understood where we were coming from. So that was great. We got some good perspective on you know, some things going on with the whole bird situation there. So that was good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see from an NFL agent standpoint, other than Eugene Parker, who's been pretty much hush-hush on the whole situation, just to give a different outlook on everything. So that's nice. Bills rookies reported today to training camp. How excited and how hype are you right now? I'm kind of like jumping and chomping at the bit to for the veterans to get there and get this thing going once again. Yeah,
man, I am excited. I put a tweet out on Twitter this morning. Not that you put a tweet out anywhere else, but just saying how this was probably the most hyped I've ever been for a training camp. And people are like, oh, whatever, every year. But I didn't add the fact that this is the first year I actually have all my tickets in order and I'm all set. I got my dates picked out. So I'm excited. There's no angst. I've got nights marked off on the schedule. The wife knows what's up, when I'm going to be in Rochester and everything. It's all good. So that's why I'm excited. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going. I'll be there the first 3 night practices. Looking to mix it up with fellow fans, other Bills Mafia tweets, even some of the people who think Bills Mafia is not the best hashtag. I'm looking forward to meeting them as well. We're all Bills fans, and I can't wait, man. I'm hyped. I want to see my new quarterback out there. I want to see my team. I want to, you know, we're overdue, man. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been months, and it's finally here. Time flies, and we can't wait to get the smell of the green grass and the cleats and the hard-nosed football getting back at it. So it'll be good for all Bills fans to get to training camp if they haven't been. It's a great experience. We touched on it on a few shows ago on what they offer there. But yeah, it should be a great time. Starts on Sunday with the first night practice and lasts up and through August and through a couple preseason games. So it'll be a great time. So if you have a chance, head out to St. John's Fisher and enjoy some Bills practices. Get to see what the new coaching staff has to offer for the Bills, as well as the players, and have a few interactions with the players, the fans, as Del touched on a little bit, and get back into that football season that we all love. So definitely a great show today, and we look forward to kind of touching on training camp a little bit next week, as like I said, training camp starts on Sunday.
Thanks for tuning in to Bills Central Radio. For Bills news, updates, stats, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.
Shout. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Touchdown, rain, sleet, or snow. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Defense. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go. go, Buffalo. Touchdown, race lead the snow. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Defense, race lead the snow. Okay, new vibe, new feel, new coach, new Bills. Red, white, blue steel. Hard work, true skill. This year's on you, Spill. LDM, I'm predicting that. Touchdown, Stevie Johnson, swag cooking.